So there's a website called Spell Table that Magic the Gathering does, where you can use like your phone's camera to point down at your play area. You can play paper Magic the Gathering with people like remotely.
Okay.
We tried that last night. It was actually really freaking cool. Like it actually like you can click on parts of the screen of their camera and it'll actually recognize the cards and bring them up to you so you can see what they're playing and what combos
That's
they can
nuts.
do and stuff. It was
Nice.
really cool. I had to use a brick to hold my thing steady.
The camera?
Yeah, let me see if I can show you guys. You see this right there?
Nice.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything. I had the height right, and that's one of those like car suction cup things that just
Yeah.
literally the suction cup doesn't work like at all. So I'm like, Jess, I need something small and heavy. She's like, what about a brick? I'm like, fuck yeah.
I can't wait till you get angry playing Magic the Gathering and just chuck a brick through the wall.
Oh, don't tempt me.
Doesn't everybody have like a utility brick just laying around somewhere? I literally do. Like I keep a brick just in case I need a brick for something.
Yeah,
Mike and Andy, if you guys are coming on Saturday, I got a whole pile of bricks.
I need a utility brick, not utility bricks.
You can go through. You can find. You can select which optimal sizes and contours are best for your purposes. Take a few.
See, Andy, maybe you can find a better brick.
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing's gonna beat the brick that I use for this.
I can't wait. You go to Josh's house for a movie and you come back with like 5 bricks. Hello and welcome to another episode of Brian and Super Friends. I'm your host, Brian Labick. Joining me for this episode is someone who's been known to make all the hammers jealous, Andy Stoles.
What's up, podcast people?
Next guest, there's a very specific part of this movie where I thought this guest might have a heart attack and shit his pants all at the same time. Josh Zorich.
Oh my god, you have no idea how close some of that came. I think I almost made Sarah's extremities go numb from squeezing her leg hard because I was concerned.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the movie, we'll get there. And lastly, we bring the love, he brings the thunder, Mike Bradley.
I can agree with that. All right.
It's always a hit or miss whether it's going to pass your test or not
like
with some
that.
of those.
I mean, it's always a hit or miss whether you're making me out to be an asshole or not. So it's, you know.
That's part of the fun too, right? Flip of the coin.
I never know what's going to happen. That's why I don't plan anything for these intros because I don't know how I'm going to have to fucking respond. So it's, I can't.
Yep. I like to keep you on your toes.
Fair.
Josh, we missed you. Welcome back. It's been like, what, two months or something since you've done... I think Red Sonja was the last one you were on.
I think it was when I opened up my recording software and, went to like File, Save As. The last folder associated with that program popped up, and that was it. I didn't realize so much time had passed. Like, the summer's going quick.
I can't remember. Did we get to your 100th already? We got to your 100th episode. Okay, yes.
Yes. This will be 102. Well, 102 outside of like 102 of call it regular episodes.
Okay.
Doesn't include Never Seen That or
right.
reruns.
Okay.
Wait, you're not including Never Seen That in regular episodes?
Not in the file count that I keep.
I think he titles them differently when he sends them to me, so they're not like numbered.
Okay.
It's just the way I organize my recording files. It doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
Josh, I think since you're one of the few people that I know listens consistently, what have you thought of the content we've been providing in your absence? Instant feedback.
Your tone of your voice there with the question.
Well, you did call us an idiot recently because we didn't know what sheets were. So I mean.
Oh yeah, you did. You called us out on social media.
Well, to be fair, that was in our private.
Oh, that's right.
That's
right. Yeah.
But now that Mike has brought it to the attention of listeners, yes, that did happen. I'm blanking here. Oh, I say the cadence of your voice changed so drastically there. Like you went from like, I'm Brian, the host. Hey, Josh, what do you think, to like, I am a market research person leading this focus group. Please tell me your opinion.
How can we better improve your user experience?
Pretty much. Like, go back and listen when you are editing it. It definitely shifted there. It's been a good time. As always, there's some of the topics around this time of year, like the video game news or convention stuff that you guys discuss that basically becomes like background driving noise for me.
That's fair. Yes.
But I kind of at least still go through it all, because even among topics that I'm not that familiar with or not into myself, there's always just awesome nuggets of entertainment and jokes and good times to be had in there. But it's been good. I think this might have been one of my longest absences for
I think so.
Quite a stretch.
Yeah. Not that I've gone back and looked at every episode you haven't been a part of and see how long it's been in between, but 2 months feels like a long time.
Yeah.
Sidebar on that, and speaking of shitting pants, Andy, you must be shitting your pants with the video game news you've seen recently.
The Skull and Bones?
Yeah. It's finally happening, and they're talking about it.
Yeah, but I watched the gameplay trailer, and there's a lot of like, why?
Okay, fair. I mean, I did watch it too and say I'm probably not playing this.
The cinematic trailer, I was like, wow, the graphics for this actually look really good. And then I watched the gameplay trailer, and I'm like,
maybe not.
It screams so much that, like, hey, we've announced this game, we haven't done anything with it. We should put something out.
Well, they said it's coming in November, I think.
November, yeah.
Yeah,
by the end of the year.
5.5 years?
It's been a while. I feel like it's gone through some drastic changes, and they just said, whatever we got, ship it.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm with Brian, posted in Discord that, maybe if it was $15 or $20, and that's kind of where I'm going. Considering the backlog and stuff, I think $15 or $20 is probably a good price for that. It's definitely not getting 60 from me.
Yeah, and I mean, it's Ubisoft, so it'll be 70, and in 5 years they're going to take it offline and take it away from you.
All right, so we're going to spin to what we're here to talk about, which is Thor, Love and Thunder, which is the latest Marvel movie. I think this is number 29 for the MCU.
Yeah, I think your count is right.
Which means that number 30 should be Black Panther in November.
Nice.
So again, our normal routine for these, we're going to go over who was involved making the movie, who stars in it. We'll do some online reviews and box office, give some spoiler-free thoughts, then we'll turn ourselves loose for the spoilers. So starting off, the movie is directed yet again by Taika Waititi, returning after directing Thor Ragnarok. This movie is also written by Waititi and Jennifer Caton Robinson. It stars Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Natalie Portman as Jane Foster, also Thor, Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, Christian Bale as Gore, Taika Waititi as Korg, Russell Crowe as Zeus, and we get what amounts to basically cameo appearances from the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm going to skip around a little bit here because I got the ratings for Rotten Tomatoes, but I'm going to bounce around between all the movies and see just how they compare, because I think there might be something there to at least talk about. I think the comparisons between the Thor movies are somewhat interesting. So for Love and Thunder, it's coming in with a critic rating of 67% and an audience rating of 80%. So if we compare that with, we'll go back through. So go into Ragnarok. Ragnarok, I think, is still the highest rated Thor movie. That's it.
That would not shock me.
93% for the critic, 87% for the audience. Thor: The Dark World comes in at 66% from the critics and 75% from the audience.
Surprising.
And
very surprising.
The first Thor is 77 from the critics and 76 from the audience. So that's pretty even across the board.
I mean, Ragnarok's significantly higher, I would say.
Sure.
And I think, like, Love and Thunder comes in most comparable to The Dark World.
I think it's like between the two. Like thoughts. The first two, I think it's very comparable too on the scores, right?
At least for ratings. Like Love and Thunder is 67% critic, 80% audience. The Dark World is 66% critic, 75% audience.
And what was Thor? The first one?
Thor 77 critic, 76 audience. So the audience scores are similar, but the critics are higher for the first Thor.
Okay.
Critics are coming in lower for Dark World and Love and Thunder.
Okay.
Like, Love and Thunder is, based on the critics, 1% higher than the Dark World. I did bring up the Metacritic ratings too, so we'll go through those. Love and Thunder is currently at 57 with Metascore and a 5.5 user score.
That's incredibly
And again,
close.
going back through, Ragnarok comes in 74, Metascore 7.8 user score. The Dark World comes in at 54 Metascore, 7.1 user. The first Thor 57 Metascore, user score 7.1. So the ratings fluctuate a little bit more, I think, with Metacritic, or at least like critic reviews. Like Thor 1 and Thor 2 are pretty similar. They both have the same user score. Ragnarok comes up to 7.8 for the user score, and then it comes back down for Love and Thunder 5.5. 5.5 is the lowest rating, so the Love and Thunder has the lowest user score currently on Metacritic.
That's
Users are
fans.
rating it the least favorite of the Thor movies.
I mean, to each his own. Again, I think I would have thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, so we'll dive into like why we agree with one of those or why we don't, like when we get into spoiler stuff, because I think it's probably a better place to really dive into that. Box office stuff I was looking at. So Google search for the budget is telling me the budget for the movie was $250 million for Love and Thunder.
Ooh.
Now, comparably, the first Thor movie was $150 million. The Dark World, $170 million. Ragnarok, $180 million. So the budget skyrocketed between Ragnarok and Love and Thunder.
Yeah. I almost wanted to say, like, well, this was very effects heavy and like CGI settings and whatnot, but they kind of all were.
Yeah.
There was a lot of practicality probably in the first one when you go to wherever, New Mexico or the Southwest U.S. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe a couple salaries in this one.
That's my guess. You're paying for the actors. I think Christian Bale doesn't come cheap to get
Not at
Hemsworth
all.
to come back for another Thor.
Yeah, because we've probably said it so many times over the years, but our long-term understanding of the main couple solo Avengers were 3 solo movies and 3 Avengers movies.
Right.
So presuming that initial contract at some point wrapped up with Endgame, that, yeah, along the way, they're like, well, if we want to keep going, let's go back to the table.
And you're also talking about bringing Natalie Portman back in this time. She wasn't in Ragnarok, so that's another added salary.
Yeah.
And did you mention the other big salary by name in the cast?
I don't think he did. I think we're tiptoeing on it, and I don't know if he wanted to save that for spoilers.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll save it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember whether you said it or not, so I didn't want to. But there is another big salary there that
Yeah,
there's
it's
a
gotta
lot of
be.
people that were not cheap to have present in this movie, and I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah. Opening weekend for Love and Thunder domestically, it made $144 million. Compared to what Doctor Strange did its opening weekend, Doctor Strange did $187 million domestic opening weekend. So Love and Thunder comes in a little bit less than what Multiverse of Madness did. What else? Current worldwide for Love and Thunder is $382 million. So by the time this comes out, it will be in its second weekend of release. It should have hit easily $400 million worldwide by the time this is out. Doctor Strange capped out its theatrical run. I don't think it's still in theaters at this point, but worldwide it made $954 million. I don't know if Thor's going to hit that number at the rate it's going, but we'll see what the second weekend does.
Yeah, it's hard to tell until you see a couple of weeks and you can see what the drop-off rate on a movie is.
Yeah, they're saying like the drop-off rates were comparable between all the last couple Marvel movies. They all seem to drop somewhere between 60 to 67, 68% in its second weekend.
Yeah.
So for Thor, I think that amounts to like $50 million. It dropped or was planning to drop predicting to drop because it hasn't come out yet for its second weekend.
Right.
So again, compared to some of the other Thor movies, Ragnarok capped out at $854 million worldwide. The Dark World did $645 million worldwide. Thor did $449 million worldwide. So they've been progressively going up.
Yeah.
I don't know if... I guess we'll see if Love and Thunder is going to hit Ragnarok numbers of 854 million. I think that's a pretty steep number the way it's going. Plus the budget was higher for Love and Thunder, so it has to do a little bit more to make that kind of money. But again, we'll keep track. We'll see where that ends up.
Yeah, it's interesting if you think about the trajectory of the last 15 years of these movies. You know, Thor is the second to last initial standalone film released in Phase 1. It's like the fourth movie
Yeah.
in the entire MCU catalog in the chapters. Probably was one of the harder ones to sell in a way, like kind of the like first time
Started
like,
doing fantastic stuff and magic and that kind of thing.
Mythology along with science fiction, along with fantasy, like all those things mixing together, along with, I mean, be honest, like Hemsworth was not a name.
Yeah.
At the time, you could not sell that movie with Chris Hemsworth. It was still like Anthony Hopkins and hoping like familiarity with the rest of them. I think the Dark World, then when you jump to that, I mean, by that point, you know, it's the year after Avengers.
Right.
And the world was like, oh, holy shit, this is a thing.
Yeah.
This works.
Yeah.
And it was 6 months after Iron Man 3, which did $1 billion. So, like, absolutely, we're all on board. This is the next one. Of course, we're going to see it. And what I would bet the main difference between that and Ragnarok numbers is probably repeat viewings.
Oh, yeah.
Did anybody else, if they recall, did anybody see The Dark World more than once in theaters? Off the top of your head.
I feel like I want to assume yes, because I feel like I've probably seen a lot of them at least twice.
Fair.
But I don't know for a fact.
Same. I'm not sure.
I don't think I did, and for even the most common fan, I don't feel like there was much after that was like, oh man, can't wait to go back next week to re-experience that awesomeness. So like it was riding the wave of post-Avengers, post-Iron Man 3.
And it put Loki back on screen, which everybody I think was clamoring for after Avengers 2.
Yeah, that's true too. That was the other thing. Yeah, he featured very heavily in the advertising. And Ragnarok, I feel like probably would have done better. Not that it did bad. It probably would have done even better had people had any idea of what they were going to be walking into in advance.
Well, that
like I think for all the whole audiences, it was such a surprise and delight.
Yeah.
For all of us. But if somebody never took the plunge initially, and we're like, oh, I'll catch that later. I don't care if I see all of these. Whatever, it's Thor. That last one wasn't very good.
Well, like you said, I think it
probably made it suffer.
It helped from word of mouth, like people going to see it and saying, "You have to check this out."
That's what I was gonna say.
Eventually, yeah, I'm sure it did, and it probably helped eventually. But there's probably a certain percentage of the audience that was missed because that didn't happen or it wasn't strong enough.
Right.
Like the motivation for them wasn't there as much initially. So I mean, that's kind of placing the trajectory of like where they sit in the evolution of this. So I wonder, in the end, will the performance of this one, like what mixture of that history will this one show? Like I generally I feel the word of mouth for this is not going to be as strong.
No, I don't think so either.
As Ragnarok was, and so could it have the same adverse effect? But again, like coming off of Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Phase 4 coming out of Endgame, like is it still going to make 700 million just because it's an MCU movie and they've got enough of a fan base?
I think this one's definitely banking on you're getting Hemsworth is a name now to draw people in. So Hemsworth as Thor is enough to get people in seats, and then bringing back the director of Ragnarok, and Natalie Portman, like bringing back Natalie Portman. I think those three things are what they're pushing this movie on. So yeah, we'll have to see if I think that's enough to how it stacks up to Ragnarok and how good the legs are for this movie going forward. That's what I'm curious about.
Mm.
That's about it. That's all I have for the box office and scores and stuff. Like I said, scores we can revisit. We'll see how it sort of stacks up maybe when we're getting into spoilers and stuff. But number wise, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see how it stacks up over the next couple weeks, where it ends up worldwide when it's done. But before we get to spoilers, general thoughts for the movie. What you thought, what you can talk about spoiler free. Andy, maybe we'll kick off with you. What did you think of the movie spoiler free?
Spoiler free, I feel the movie was very enjoyable. I don't think I quite liked it as much as Ragnarok, and I thought some of the jokes went a little longer than
I think I
was
know exactly
expecting
which
them
one you're
to.
talking about because I had the same idea.
Yeah, it just kept happening, and I'm like, okay, this I'm starting to get annoyed. And there were aspects of that running joke that I liked, but it was just in it far too often.
I think there was one moment when I thought it was done that it
thought,
happened again and it got me and I was like, okay, that was kind of funny. But then after that, I was like, nope, I'm done.
Yep. Yeah. I think we're probably talking about the same thing. I still really liked it. I think probably in the scope of MCU movies, it's like upper middle
Yeah.
tier.
Okay. Josh, what do you think?
So there's a particular podcast that I also listen to. Sorry guys, I don't mean to cheat on you.
Man.
Like a Mjolnir Stormbreaker relationship type thing here. But and I gotta stop listening to it when they do their thought sharing about a film before we get together to talk about the same thing, because it feels like one person in particular on that show seems to be able to verbalize what I am thinking about something very often, and I don't ever realize that's what it is. And they put it into good terms, talking about Love and Thunder, which is the components are interesting and they're all good there, but every one of them seems to be, and the word they used was imbalanced.
Okay.
And
yeah.
for me, that was one of the perfect words to choose. There's elements of pieces here, but the way that everything got put into the stew pot, the proportions weren't right. The amount of time you let it simmer, like all the cooking metaphors, like it just, the pieces didn't come together nearly as strongly as they needed to take it from just enjoyable to good.
Yeah. I agree. Mike, spoiler free, what do you think?
I have a few major thoughts, and I think Josh stated one thing in particular very well, and that is imbalance.
Well, I'll give credit to Mark Bernard, who actually said it, that I took that word from. But go
That's
ahead.
fair. I just feel like the word itself is very representative of this movie, in that there is several really good performances, and there's a lot of just imbalance in the tone, in what I was hoping to see versus what I did see versus... It's a really good word for it. And I think, the best general thoughts I could give outside of that would be to say that this movie feels, to me, a lot like the entire MCU Phase 4 so far. Enjoyable, but I don't know where the hell it's going. And they're not giving you enough information about any of it to make you look forward to something bigger.
Yeah.
They're not setting anything up. And I think they need to be setting something up. And I feel like this film struggled with that.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Yeah, I think I'd agree with a lot of that. I think, to your point, I think the MCU definitely there's probably a plan there. We just don't know it, or it seems too sporadic, and it doesn't make sense to us yet. I would hope, my fingers are crossed, that I trust Marvel enough that when Phase 4 is finally done, that we look back at some of these movies and we go, oh, okay, yeah, all that makes sense now. Like, I keep saying I think Eternals set up what should be, what I would think is going to be the MCU going forward, and no other movie or show has addressed what Eternals has done yet. The only other show that actually got me like really excited about what's to come is Miss Marvel, which for anybody that's finished that show, the end of the last episode of that was like, oh, okay, you guys are hinting at some stuff that I'm very excited about. A lot of these movies in Phase 4 just feel like standalone movies, and a lot of them are like introductions to new characters. Shang-Chi, Eternals, like that's new stuff they ever have to introduce, but some of the characters that we've seen before, well, I guess maybe Doctor Strange did set up some other stuff that I think I could see that hinting at some other stuff to come, but that might be the exception to everything else. But I mean, coming back to Thor: Love and Thunder, I think I would agree that I think it tonally is the thing that didn't sit well with me. I feel like they took what was good with Ragnarok and just like turned it up to 11, which in theory sounds like a good idea, but for me it just didn't hit the same. Like I think, and maybe balance is the word we're going to keep coming back to, but I think Ragnarok had a very good balance of like a serious tone and taking the character seriously, and now he's a joke in this one, and I think they lean into the joke a lot more in this movie than they did in Ragnarok, and it just didn't tonally sit as well with me. Granted, I think Andy was the one to say like it's still a mediocre Marvel movie, which I would argue that even a mediocre Marvel movie is still better than most movies. Like I'm still having a good time in the theater, but Marvel movies have set a bar so high for me that when you come in under that, you feel it.
Yeah, and so I got to tag team off of something you just said, and again, sort of curse Bernardin for his sage wisdom, because your comment about like the main character, he put it in a very good way, which was in Ragnarok, even though there's kind of comedic moments that Thor is a part of, Thor the character isn't really in on the joke.
Yeah.
Of the rest of the movie.
Yes.
The reason that we as an audience are finding everything that's funny about that movie funny is not entirely because he's not in on it, but because it is unexpected. It exists outside of any particular character in that movie or storyline or element. In this, like you said, they lean into it, and Thor is now making a funny comedic scene. Yeah. He's intentionally hitting punchlines. He's intentionally part of the moments. He's part of the joke. He's in on it all, and that, like you said, tonally is the good word everyone keeps throwing around.
That might be what happened.
That's the big difference.
Like Ragnarok, like Thor plays it almost like the straight guy in a comedy.
Exactly.
Like the things are bouncing off of him, and now in this one, he's the one delivering the jokes, and he's the joke guy.
He is, and I tried to think of that today, which was, think of the moments in Ragnarok like his interactions with the Hulk and Bruce, where he's telling the one like, oh no, I don't even like Bruce, he's just a geek with science, I prefer you. And then when he's with Bruce later, no, I don't like Hulk, he's smashy, I prefer. He's part of those jokes too.
Yeah.
He's creating the joke in that moment. He's creating the joke when he throws the bowling ball thing at the window that doesn't break and hits him in the head, and then he jumps up and like does a little, boxing punch in the air.
Yeah.
He's part of it, but there's something about the construction of the circumstances and the environment. There's something about it all that, like you said, it doesn't feel like they just wrote a joke with almost like a joke with a punchline.
Yeah.
A moment that inherently, as we'll get to these things we're alluding with like Stormbreaker and whatnot, those things they do are intentionally, undeniably meant to just be a comedy moment.
Yeah.
There is no other conflicting or correlating tone happening along with it.
And I do think there's some stuff in this movie that I think you could have led or leaned more into the drama of it. And maybe that's just something they didn't want to do for a, PG-13 quote unquote family friendly Marvel movie that, might get you a little bit too depressed and bring the mood down. But I think that I would have had more enjoyment out of the movie if they tried to give us more time with that or lean more into that, which we can get into in the spoilers. But maybe just potential for a lot more that I just felt underwhelmed with some of the stuff that they did.
Agreed.
I think they saw that the humor worked in Ragnarok.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yes.
doubled down on it in this movie. And
I mean, the word of mouth that we were talking about earlier, I think that's what
And it
got
was a-
people to see
and
Ragnarok
it was a
over and
push.
over again. Was, hey, it's funny
Yeah.
now. Like, Thor's fun.
Well, and I think a good comparison for me to draw between the two movies is Guardians and Guardians 2. Where Guardians and Guardians 2 seem to have the same tone throughout both movies, and they kept that tone. Ragnarok and Love and Thunder do not share that. You know, they managed to keep the magic in Guardians 2 that they had. And I feel like some of that magic was lost here.
And it's funny because Ragnarok and Love and Thunder are both directed by the same guy. You'd think tonal shifts like this would happen if you changed directors.
Well, I think
well, who wrote Ragnarok though? It wasn't Taika himself.
I don't have that queued up, but I can look.
That was sort of like going out on a ledge, letting him even direct it. Correct?
I think
a
the
little.
choice in direction back then I think was a surprise for a lot of people.
it was
Yeah.
very unexpected because he was not somebody that was incredibly well known. He had done a few highly thought of small projects.
Like what? Like what we do in the show.
Yeah, he had that movie and a few.
and Jojo Rabbit and stuff like that.
That was
that
after.
before or after?
After.
That was
He
a
had
movie.
some like local New Zealand kind of stuff that was done beforehand, and he had some work on other movies, but like as a main director, I guess he was going off of What We Do in the Shadows.
So I did look up the writers. Andy, you're right. He did not write Ragnarok. It's 3 different writers for Ragnarok. And then Taika and, who did I say earlier? I gotta find her name again.
Jennifer Caton
Yes.
Robinson.
Yeah. So, and then the 2 of them wrote Love and Thunder. So it's a completely different writing team. So maybe that's the tonal shift we're feeling. It's just the different writers.
Okay.
Because I think like the style of the movie fits like what I feel like Ragnarok was. Like the direct, like the color palette and how like flashy and bright and
And like the
yeah, the
classic rock
soundtrack and all that
sort of-
stuff. I think that fits the style that Taika brought to Ragnarok. That to me gels.
Yep.
It's just the tonal the shift of the movie feels off to me. So yeah, you're right. Maybe it is the writing change.
Yeah, I feel like if they would have kept it a little closer with the serious tone,
Yeah.
yeah, like Josh nailed it with the imbalance. Like the humor's up to 11, and the serious tone is way down at like
Yeah.
6 or 7. Like Ragnarok had it like right around like balanced correctly.
And I don't know if Mark Bernardin's use of imbalance means to him the same thing that I took it as, and that it feels like it describes good for me. And it's not just the tone per se with drama versus comedy versus it was also how the story elements were there. Like I feel like we were watching like 5 different movies that only kind of one almost got told well.
Yeah.
Just because of the just the different arcs that kind of weren't there.
All right. I don't know if we have anything else to add for general thoughts. I think we probably need to get into the spoilers to just hit the nail on the head for some of the stuff we're skirting around. But again, I say this every time, regardless of how we're feeling mediocre about this movie now, if you're listening to this and you have not seen the movie, go see it. Check it out for yourself. You may love this. This may be your favorite Marvel movie ever, which we won't take that away from you. This is
It's a very
Yeah.
good movie. I mean, it's just
It had a lot to live up to.
I don't know,
A
maybe
whole
yes, the
lot.
hype
Yeah.
around it was definitely there. Yes.
Sure.
yeah.
I should have pulled up like our anticipated list to see where it ranked on some of our
It
lists.
was number 2 for
everybody.
me.
It was on number 6, I believe, for me. I looked because I crossed it off after.
Number
Because I know I can find. So this was anticipated of 2022. So where was it for? Yeah, 6 for Josh, 2 for Mike, 6 for me. So that was where we landed.
And I think, and I don't regret this, but I think I even made comments when we did that episode that I had left Ragnarok off of my 2017 anticipation list. And so this was kind of making up for that because I didn't want to be fooled again. So I don't think I regret it. But at this point, I've seen 9 of my 10.
Oh wow.
On your most
anticipated for
anticipated?
this year.
Okay.
Yeah, the only one left is Bullet Train, and that got pushed back a few weeks to August.
Yeah.
And so, given that, I might revisit. Well, given a couple of them that came out this year, I'd probably do a reshuffling. Anyway, but
I'm looking at my list.
Yeah,
Like three of the 10 movies I have on my list all got pushed to
got
2023.
postponed.
We've had
The
that
Flash, I don't
problem
even know if
for a
that movie
few
will ever see the light of day.
consecutive years. I mean, honestly, with what's going on there, who knows at this point?
That's what I mean. Like,
Like,
that movie might never come out.
That could just be, don't even bother. Like, it's just lost money. Just let it go.
HBO Max
That,
direct.
Yeah.
that
something
actually,
like that.
yeah, I could see that.
Well, in typical Flash fashion, maybe it came out and we just didn't realize it was so fast.
It came out back when Ezra Miller was still good. All right, so we'll get into spoilers. So if you have not seen Thor: Love and Thunder, pause us now, come back after watching the movie. If you're caught up or don't mind us giving away plot points and specific stuff, continue on, and we will ruin the movie for you. So either way, this is your last warning. Spoilers to follow.
Spoiler! Spoiler! You know, something like that.
So piggybacking off of something that Mike just said, I think it was Mike that said that it felt like a bunch of different
was Josh.
stories. No, it was Josh. A bunch of different stories and only one was really told well-ish.
Yeah.
I feel like even the narrator kept telling us that. With the narrator was Korg
Yeah.
for a lot of it, right? And yet another classic Thor tale. It's just like I feel like we just got these little
Mhm.
Yeah, like short stories and stuff.
mini short stories that were sort of semi kind of related, and you need to just sort of like step on that pebble to get to this pebble and make it across the screen and whatever.
It's fair.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
But I didn't want to bring that up in the non-spoilery section.
Yeah,
in case
right,
people
yeah.
didn't know Korg was a semi-narrator.
We were talking a lot about tone in the general stuff, so let's dig into specifics with the tone. So is there anything else we want to get into for the tone? Anything that stood out to you one way or the other?
I'd love to hop in on this because
Okay.
I think it's the easiest thing to point out that the villain they chose for this movie, while Christian Bale abso-fucking-lutely killed it as Gore the God Butcher. He killed it. His performance was fantastic. He was creepy. He was scary. He was sympathetic in a lot of ways. He did what Christian Bale is expected to do. You sign Christian Bale, this is what you get.
It's 100 of their $250 million budget.
Maybe. But the brutality and basically everything about Gore does not fit the tone that Taika Waititi is bringing to Thor. To this series. Like, it just doesn't fit. Like, it felt out of place. I feel like this is a lot of what we're saying. You have a lot of really cool horror elements that were used in this movie. Some of the visual effects around Gore were amazing and awesome and genuinely, like, if used in a different way, would have been legitimately scary. But I never felt like they had that in this movie because it all felt within the tone of what Taika presents.
Yeah.
So it felt imbalanced.
Did you get-
Can I ask this then? Because when I felt that, and maybe a second viewing would make me feel a little bit differently, but from what I remember, it felt like Gore should have been in this movie like 30% more than he was.
Yeah. They needed more.
There's huge areas where he's just gone. There's like one kind of like end of act one confrontation that they have in New Asgard, then he goes away, and like even that isn't really that like I think for me it felt like the opportunity to show exactly how brutal he is or how devastating he could be. Like, they just didn't give him much screen time.
No.
And maybe it's partially for the reason you're saying. Maybe that was on purpose in order to not come into conflict with the rest of the tone of everything else they were going for. But yeah, I just felt like your antagonist wasn't really around that much.
And
Yeah.
and I think
No.
that could have leveled the tone more. Bring him in more, and it might help even that tone out to more along the lines of a movie with gore and where that should be.
Yeah, like I get the whole like I was surprised that they went with basically a quick origin story of him at the beginning, and that's how they opened. That's fine. Like right in retrospect, I'm like I'm okay with it. But like along the way, I figure you're gonna continue. Okay, you've set up this idea, so along the way, even if it's not somebody we know, you will still like when they get to the Hall of Zeus and all that, in Omnipotent City, like there could have been reports of like, oh look, we now have 10 more empty chairs than we did last month because of his victims, or like show us like a cutaway of him taking down a few more victims. Like he gets the first god that he worshipped that betrayed him, and then he shows up in New Asgard, and then he basically kidnaps the kids and shows up at the end. Like there's nothing in between for him.
Yeah.
You see what amounts to like a news report from the Guardians of the Galaxy had some sort of
Yes.
yeah, and he's like, oh, like this guy died and this guy died and this guy
Oh, yeah,
died. So
yeah,
you
yeah.
see like sort of like from a person and a person, just like you don't see anything firsthand from what he's done.
No,
you just
and-
sort of see the remnants
the-
of what he
the-
left behind.
And the piece that you're talking about happens in the first 15 minutes, 12, 10.
Yeah, because it's still in the Guardians.
The
of the
Guardians are still
Galaxy.
there, and then it just like the threat of gore really did not feel present to me. It did not remind me that it was still there and why it actually
Well,
is something to worry about.
right. I mean, and even that opening sequence where, Thor is with the Guardians on whatever planet that is. They
Mhm.
talk about how Gore was there and killed their gods, and that's why their temple's empty, but we don't see it. We don't see him
Right.
being as brutal and hateful as he is toward gods. We just know it happened.
Right.
And I don't know if I need brutality per se. I think I just need examples of maybe his resolve.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you're going to
Like
see.
I don't know if I
guess, is like
I need the
him
intensity or the graphicness per se.
Yeah.
I just need to be
graphic, but
told here. I don't know. Just kind of mentioning that he's doing it
I mean,
as opposed to it sort of being depicted in a way, especially in a way that impacts the path that our characters are on.
right.
Because he really doesn't do that until he shows up and kidnaps kids.
Yeah, the majority of his antagonistical stuff is shown is brought to us from off screen.
Yeah.
Like we hear of it. We don't get to see it. So we have not a lot of weight to put in the antagonist.
You'd almost wonder if like there's a longer cut of this somewhere. Like I think I've seen interviews with Taika saying, like someone asked him if there was a director's cut or an extended cut, and he basically just said, well, they're scenes that are deleted for a reason. They're not in the movie, and left it at that. So I don't think we're ever going to see
Sure.
an extended cut. But
Nah.
I think certain characters could have benefited in this movie with more screen time. Gore is definitely
Yes.
one of them. I think Jane needs
Yep.
more stuff to do.
Yep.
Like, I think if you put more scenes of them in there and just settle with some of the stuff, like the more dramatic, meaty moments, I feel like for character stuff is what I want. And I think maybe that's what got cut for jokes. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
But
looking at the movie,
sort-
I don't know what I would cut here to be like, okay, well, if you cut this out and replace it with more dramatic stuff, then it fills in
What-
for me. But
What was the runtime on the movie? It actually, I know, like coming out of the movie, Amy and I talked, like it felt
I think it
short.
was like a solid 2 hours.
I think it was short of 2
Like
hours.
it felt shorter
It's-
than most
yeah, it
recent
says-
MCU.
IMDb's listing, and this is with credits and all, 158.
Yeah, so it's shorter than most of the MCU that we've seen recently.
yeah,
I feel like this movie could have benefited from an extra 5.
Yeah,
Easily.
And since we're talking about gore, I feel like especially like the Thor movies and the MCU in general have gone above and beyond explaining like mythical or fictional artifacts and
Yeah.
weapons, and like the Gauntlet, the Infinity Stones, Mjolnir, Stormbreaker, and then we get this cool, like, I'm gonna call it a bastard sword for lack of a better term for it. Um, the God Breaker,
Necro sword.
what's it? Necro sword. I would have loved to have seen just a little about it, other than this is the Necro sword, and then okay, now what?
Well, they even make
Like,
the
it
comment
kills
that like
God.
the sword chose him. Like that
Yeah,
would have been
so-
cool to learn some backstory about how it chooses its wielders and
Yeah.
stuff.
Even if we get like the Bond villain explanation to Thor while he has them all captured, like this sword came from yada da da and does this, and I can feel it's just
Or if you want to like show, okay, how about this? He has Andy, I think you're the one that said like you experience a lot of gore through sort of Shakespearean means, sort of off stage, off camera means.
Yep.
I think a lot of the terror we're supposed to infer from him is through those scenes where Thor is spirit projecting to where the kids are being held after they're kidnapped.
Yep.
You're supposed to get why he's such a bad guy, because look at these kids in this horrible cage and what they're experiencing. Why not have him have story time with the kids,
and I thought
as
they
if
were
he's
gonna
like,
do it.
I'm your caretaker, I'm watching over you, let me tell you more about this thing that I'm going to use to kill your idols and all those things governing the universe and whatnot. Like, that would have been terrifying.
Yeah, and maniacally, he would explain how it would make a better life for them for him doing this.
There you go.
And it would be a counterpoint to Korg telling his whole thing.
Ah,
It would have been
yes.
a light in the
and
dark.
and they had the opportunity. He was there. He threw that dead snake at them, and he sort of said that he had a daughter. And I thought they were going to go there,
Mhm.
and then I can't remember what happened next. But it just like, hey, look, there's another joke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just jumped from it.
You have to wonder if like if just switching things around, if like the opening of the movie was somehow in the middle of the movie, like if that would have worked better for his character. Like he just shows up as a shadowy, creepy looking guy. Like shows up at New Asgard for the first time. Like you hear about him killing gods, the first time you see him is New Asgard, Asgore. And then to your sense,
Yeah.
he could tell the story, and then you get the flashback of the beginning of the movie.
Oh, that could work. And because you could, because his story shows us that there was, we'll call it a him before him. There was another wielder of the sword
Yeah.
Right.
who some set of gods defeated, apparently, maybe in his quest to kill them or conquer them. Like maybe the motivations were different, but Gore could just exist as the present. You meet him as the present sword wielder. He's a thing. If there was a previous sword wielder that Thor is obviously already familiar with, the Necrosword,
Yeah.
then these news reports or something about gods being hunted down, it looks like they're being, annihilated, etc. That comes on his radar. He's familiar with it. So, okay, then we're off and running. Then a new threat to the gods is now in his consciousness. And then, as Andy, as you just laid out, then maybe serving as a flashback later as to why he became, like, he wasn't the first. Maybe the whole time you're thinking, oh, he is and he always has been. But then through Act 2, you get this exposition from him of, no, I'm just the most current incarnation of this, and here's why I'm choosing to do with this as I am, and guess what I'm gonna do next.
Well, and
I don't want to keep like cutting us off here, but we're going down the rabbit hole of what we want this movie to be, not what it is. I want to talk about what the movie is.
Fair enough.
I would put one last little point in for it when we're about Gore, that something that I would have liked to have seen done better, and that is him turning into a villain. We see him turn into a villain by killing a character we do not know or give a shit about. in the very opening scene of the movie. This is some god that treats him like dirt and kind of deserves it almost. And this is how he becomes a villain. Maybe it would have been a good thing to have him kill off somebody that wasn't going to matter long term for Marvel, but people still cared about. Give him somebody to go after that it's like, damn, now he's a villain. Whoever that person might be, whatever character you might choose, give him somebody that he offs that's like, all right, now I'm pissed. Some reason to really hate the character.
That is the moment, and Brian, you alluded to it earlier, that would have been maybe a better use of, even though it was fake anyway, that would have been the better use of a potential core death.
Yeah, that was the moment I talked about in the intro that I figured Josh just shit his pants whenever that happened, because my heart sank watching it, and I was like, oh god, Josh, no.
And I will say the only reason that I'm okay after they show, no, of course he's not dead, is because Zeus turned out not to really be that important to the rest of the plot.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a thing they do along the way, and it's kind of a MacGuffin in a way, because then they get the lightning bolt and they leave.
What was the lightning bolt even needed for?
I think it's more just to give Thor something to use that's not a hammer or axe.
Yeah, it felt like a whole pointless side quest.
Like, we know Mjolnir's taken, Stormbreaker is taken by the villain. He can't just go in barehanded. Let's give him a lightning bolt.
Didn't we establish in Thor 3 and Ragnarok that he can just go in barehanded? He's not the god of hammers, he's the god of thunder.
Right.
So, that was why I had a whole problem with it. You are the god of this. You can do it without anything. Just do it.
I also think the only other thing it's used for is to transport. Like, he basically used it as the Bifrost. There's one point where he uses it to transport himself to wherever he needs to go, which he can't do barehanded.
I thought that was what Stormbreaker was for.
Now, there's a point when he tries to go get Gore by himself, before anybody else goes to help him to rescue the kids.
After he's lost.
He Terminators it and puts the lightning bolt in the ground and kneels and then makes a big lightning circle and teleports somewhere.
Terminators.
So it's a MacGuffin. Okay.
Yeah.
It frustrated me. That whole omnipotent city thing frustrated me a little bit. But
it only did later when I realized it didn't really matter.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, when you thought about it, you're like, why the hell did we do this? And the answer is to introduce the Greek gods.
Yeah.
That's why they did it.
And I think these are the pieces that I mean. Like, there were 5 different stories being told, and most of them not done well. Like Gore was not fleshed out enough. Jane was better, could have been improved. I felt wholly bad for Valkyrie. Felt even worse for Sif.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
even the old Warriors 3, they didn't even give them names. Oh, that guy died. Remember that guy? That guy died. But at the same time, it's like that's basically how they went out in Ragnarok. I felt bad for them a second time because they still don't get any recognition in this movie.
Correct. And I'm kind of surprised Marvel allowed that joke to go in, because I feel like that's definitely like a Taika type of joke.
Yeah.
Being aware of not just being the filmmaker of some of these, but understanding how that played out to the consumer audience.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't like it the first time? We'll give it to you again. Here you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I feel like we've been jumping around between a lot of stuff. I do at least want to touch on, I think Mike said it with Gore. I think Christian Bale did a fantastic job with this for the little bit that he had.
Yes.
It's typical, I think, with the antagonist. If they get the first 5 minutes of the movie, you're not going to see them much during the rest of the movie because they have to give you that backstory real quick. But yeah, I think that when he finally becomes Gore and the little bit that he pops up and starts tormenting people, I think he does really good. The scene with the kids, I think, was like menacingly creepy. The scene when they're on that little black and white planet and he's stringing up Thor and Valkyrie and Jane and talking to each one individually, that was all really well done. But yeah, I do agree. I think they needed more time with him, but for what we got with him, I think was really, really good. I don't know if I cared one way or the other about him, because I think maybe I would have cared more with more screen time, but based on what we got, I think he did a very good job.
And I really enjoyed
we'll spin to, since we're talking about the Greek gods and the omnipotent city and stuff like that. So I don't know if there's anything. Well, let's spin to Zeus. What did you guys think of Zeus? Russell Crowe's Zeus.
Definitely surprised me.
It is not what I expected.
No, I had heard the casting rumors long enough ago that I'm like, okay, when he shows up, I'm not that taken aback.
Right.
But his take on it, whatever those conversations were like, mixture of creative ideas or what, definitely was, I wouldn't have telegraphed that.
Yeah.
Mike.
I mean, it is such a tonal shift away from anything you would expect for Zeus.
But fits for Taika.
It fits for Taika. And that's, I guess, part of. Like, I get why it's introduced in Thor, because gods meeting gods and all that shit. But I don't know. Like, I thought he was actually funny. Like, that was some of the more enjoyable jokes for me in this movie, was how ridiculous and over the top Zeus and the whole city was.
Yeah.
Agreed.
The whole conversation about the orgy and being uninvited from the orgy and stuff. That is very What We Do in the Shadows kind of stuff going on there.
I chuckled when he admitted that he flicked too hard.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
He's good. It's Russell Crowe. You're going to get a good performance, and he did not disappoint. He was funny. It was good, but it was, again, not what I would have envisioned for Zeus in the MCU. Yeah, just not nothing about him seemed all powerful. He seemed like a drunk to me. He seemed, that's what I would say. He seemed like he was probably hitting too much of the wine.
Well, I feel like, to be fair, some of the gods, especially maybe Zeus, just feels untouchable, so they can do whatever the hell they want. So what do they care? If they never leave that city and they feel pretty protected in that city, I'd probably act the same way too. Just give me the next orgy. Let's go.
I get that, but I mean, I'm thinking of the tone they gave Odin and the tone we get for Zeus. They're kind of the same sort of thing.
But I got the sense that Odin, we actually see Odin do battle. Zeus, I feel like, never leaves his fucking chair.
Well, that's what I mean. But they represent the same kind of thing. So to me, it's like, are all the Greek gods going to be this way? Or is it just Zeus? Because we do get an introduction of another major Greek god in the post-credits scene.
Yeah.
We get Hercules.
Which we can spin there if we want to talk about that.
Sure. Who was the actor, though? I didn't... Did you look it
I
up?
think who that was.
I didn't
I don't remember I don't know the name, but I think he's from Ted Lasso, from what I was told.
Oh, okay. I've never watched that show, so I did not recognize the person who was Hercules.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up to give him credit, because I don't know who he is offhand.
But he looked cool as Hercules. I thought that he looked correct.
Yeah, he looked like what I would imagine, what I remember from the paper comics on screen would look like.
Yeah, it was a good costume. And I think it's interesting to see that Zeus is pissed off and going to retaliate with Hercules in some way. And the funny part is actually in the comics, if I recall, Hercules is portrayed as acting more like Zeus did in this movie. Hercules was like a drunken, fun-loving nut kind of character, but also just battle-loving. Let's get drunk and go beat some people.
Does anybody, is anyone familiar enough with Futurama that if I say hedonism bot, they know who I'm talking about?
No.
I remember it, but
if anyone listening is, if you know what I'm talking about, and I'm taking half a step back to Zeus, that approach to a statesman or someone in charge of something, that lifestyle, that outlook is exactly how I feel was an adaptation into what they brought into Zeus.
So one thing that I would have liked to have seen from Omnipotent City or whatever the frack
It's hard to
called,
say.
Yeah, would have been almost like a check back, mourning the loss of one of our elderly members, Odin, or something.
I don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
To see like what his status would have been in that council, you know, being that he was, from what we knew of the MCU before this, was like the elderliest god that we knew.
Yeah.
I don't think that Odin took part in Omnipotent City. So they kind of kept to their own, I think, is like what Brian was pointing out earlier. Like, Zeus has just been holed up in Omnipotent City for God knows how long. Or, well, for Zeus knows how long. So I don't know that they would have honored Odin, because Odin probably would have said, screw those guys. They suck. Why would I go to there where they're just having orgies all the time? And, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know whether or not they... I feel like Odin would have been their enemy, almost. Or, like, maybe not an enemy, but like a,
He would have been a buzzkill.
Yeah, a buzzkill, a friendly grudge, you know, something like that to them, because...
Harshing their buzz,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I don't even think they mentioned him though, did they?
No.
No.
Not that I
Yeah.
remember, anyway.
Some like, oh, it's you, Thor, God of Thunder, son of Odin. Didn't he? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, at like some point, and that kind of relates to what I was saying about like the gods that Gore was picking off. Like, okay, so presumably they may have had a seat in that stadium at one point. Does it magically disappear when they are killed? Does it stay there in physical form and just remain empty? And if so, would there have previously been a spot for the Norse gods? Because it could have been like you only need like a 20 seconds of it, but you could have had like Thor, like, oh, I've never been here, and now I wonder, like, he could have gone to like a memorial spot
Or even like a...
for Odin, you know?
I mean, a bigger picture, even like a mention of the snap. Because you figure that would kill half of all those gods in Omnipotent City too, wouldn't it?
Not necessarily. Okay, I don't know if we want to spin to this, but I'll give my quick explanation. So something I shared with Brian after we saw it was, have either of you read, either read or seen the TV adaptation of American Gods from Neil Gaiman?
I know the...
No.
I
I would like to.
I know the general story, but I have not.
So the basic idea that he follows is, at least in that, like, gods can manifest as basically regular people on Earth, and they exist because people believe in them. When the last believer ceases to believe or is alive, they go away, right? They're no longer worshipped. They become extinct. I kind of felt like it was a similar way of this. So presumably there is like somebody in the universe, presumably Earth maybe, that still reveres or worships or understands that Zeus and the Greek gods were a thing. That's the only reason he really exists anymore.
Still, couldn't some of the gods have disappeared when their last followers were snapped away?
If their last followers were snapped away,
If
perhaps.
half of all life goes,
It's possible. But I'm saying, yeah, the gods themselves I wouldn't consider living beings in this representation per se.
They kind of established that the Asgardians are.
They do,
You know,
and
give or
my
take 5,000
so
years
my
or whatever, you know.
my counter to that was Brian pointed out that both in the stadium and Brian, you said in the temple, the Eternity's temple, right? There's a celestial
Yeah, what looks like
statue.
celestials, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right? So just like the Asgardians, could it be that these things, number one, they either already existed in some way, and beings came to view them and revere them as gods, therefore giving them additional status as gods?
So how's that?
I mean, this is
protecting
still
the
all
Thor
conjecture,
snap?
right? Like we still don't know that the MCU functions the way you're thinking it functions.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I
Correct.
don't see any proof here that anything protects them from Thanos snapping half of all life out of existence. I would still say, even if they exist only when people believe them, that's still life.
It could be. I'm just spitballing.
I just think it would have been cool to see them acknowledge it. Like, oh, hey, good job dealing with that whole thing. You brought half of us.
That's true. They seemed very ungrateful.
Yeah, like they could have, even if it didn't snap them out, they could have mentioned it.
I'm gonna spin back around to Hercules because I got the guy's name. Brett Goldstein is the guy that is Hercules. So he is from Ted Lasso.
Anything else, or just Ted Lasso?
I mean, I didn't look up his IMDb, but the first article I found that lists his name
Okay,
is saying he's from Ted Lasso.
okay,
So that's most notable, I guess.
fair enough.
Are we expecting? I mean, 'cause the end title of this, like when the movie ends, we get Thor will return, which, again, one of the articles I think I saw was seemingly a surprise to Taika Waititi and Chris Hemsworth himself. So I don't know what's going to happen after this.
I mean,
That they both kind of looked at each other like, "Did you know that? No. Did you know that? No." So I don't know. Somebody's making deals behind their back, I guess maybe, but
Is there a,
go ahead.
is there a way to bring people back from Valhalla?
Yeah, I was gonna say that they
Because
could
they
be
could
Jane.
go with the Natalie Portman. Yeah.
right. So we get the scene with Natalie Portman where she makes her way to Valhalla. I don't know enough about the comic run of the Mighty Thor and how that goes for Jane, but something I think I did catch was that Jane starts as the Mighty Thor. Like, basically, it plays out the same as the movie, right? She gets cancer, she gets Mjolnir, she becomes Thor, and eventually that time is finite, where the cancer finally gets its way and kills her. What I read from the comics was that after that, she becomes reborn as a Valkyrie, which I was waiting for that the whole time. So
Ooh.
now that she's made it to Valhalla, I don't know if that means she's going to come back as a Valkyrie now, or if that's just meant to be like a little bow for Jane Foster's character to be like, okay, yeah, she died, but she's, living on in Valhalla.
Well, I guess we don't have an MCU
that's how I took it.
definition as to how Valkyries are created. Like,
Yeah.
as of yet, we don't they could make that up as a definition in the future because they haven't said that Valkyries are born Valkyries or anything.
Right.
They haven't.
So I could see it going either way. I guess it's depending on if they want to pay Natalie Portman to come back or if she wants to come back. You could retcon that if you want to.
And don't you, in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 or 2, don't you work on a way to bring people back from Valhalla? Isn't that part of the storyline at one point?
It's been a very long time since I played those games. I feel like I remember going to Asgard for a mission in the first one, but I don't remember if you're going to bring someone back from Valhalla or not.
I remember being in Valhalla as like a hub, where
Oh,
like
maybe.
the same way you were in Stark Tower and other places, you were in Valhalla, so you were able to visit it and still leave it.
Maybe I'm vaguely remembering maybe the second one then for that.
I can't
But
remember.
I
if it
don't
was
remember
first or second.
story-wise how it works or what you had to do.
Yeah, I don't recall. It's been so long, but I remember being able to get there while still alive.
Yeah.
And I feel like
So-
we were there to bring somebody back.
Either way, I think bringing Jane Foster back is just going to come down to either availability, willingness to do the movie, or do you want to pay her?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this is a good enough send-off for Jane. Granted, I
Yeah.
think, again, I said this before, I would have liked more with Jane. Like, I think we introduced to the cancer thing, which comes out of nowhere, fine. That's part of the storyline. We sit with it for a little bit, and then she goes to Asgard to look at the hammer, and then she's Thor. Like, there's a gap there that I would like to have seen. I think more time in the
Yep.
movie with her getting the powers for the first time or trying to figure out how all this works, like, that would have been fun and given us more time with just Jane to just settle in. Every time we see
seeing-
Jane on screen, she's basically with Thor.
Seeing her
Yep.
reaction to when it happens the first time. Even like
That
seeing like
too,
her
yeah.
actually be like, holy shit, Mjolnir came to me and why am I a foot and a half taller?
And if I hadn't
Like-
watched, like, if they put no trailers out for this movie, when she finally shows up in New Asgard as Thor, that could have been like, you'd be watching it like Thor. Like, what the fuck? Jane's here. Why is she Thor? But because it's all over the marketing, it's not a surprise.
Right.
But they did the same thing with the Hulk in Ragnarok.
Right. That's another.
They wanted to sell that movie in big part on that idea.
yeah.
And if that had been a reveal in the middle of whatever Act 2 in that movie, like holy shit, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
No, I agree with the point you made with when she shows up in New Asgard. Like, okay, her and Darcy have that quick conversation. Maybe she's not expecting Thor to definitely be there that moment, but just going to, where his people are, being in the midst of it all. It would have been really cool, yeah, to watch her go through, like, okay, really, what is going on right now? The sky is getting dark. Mjolnir is shaking. Like, I guess it painted it too much, like, because what the explanation they give is like, oh, she only went there because she didn't know it yet, but Mjolnir was calling to her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What? Like, I don't. Like, that was too easy of an explanation.
And even then,
And it would have been much more interesting to at least watch her go through some kind of transformation through something.
Yeah.
and even that, like if Mjolnir was calling her, it was calling her to kill her, according to what we learn later in the movie. Like it's like, I want to speed up your death, so come to me.
Ah, good point.
Like it doesn't actually help her, so
I
why
think
would it call her?
I think it's twofold. I think that's one side of it. I think the other side is that it senses that maybe, in a sense, feels what's coming and knows that someone needs to help, and it deems Jane worthy to help out the fight that's coming.
Well, but they give us the explanation that Thor told it to protect Jane, which is
Right.
why it chooses Jane.
Yeah.
But then it's not protecting her; it's killing her. To me, it was like I don't know. Like I just didn't understand what they were trying to do there.
I mean, it'd almost be the same thing as like using an untested medication to try to cure your illness, right? Like, she has no idea what it's going to do to her. She thinks it's going to work, but she tries it anyway, and it seems like it's working, but it's not.
Yeah, but I mean, Mjolnir is supposed to be kind of godlike. I don't know. Like
I'm just trying to play the opposite side here. I don't know.
I know. I'm just. It's. I think they missed a beat there. That's all.
It's probably more that they figured by the end of the movie they want Jane to die. So how do we get there? And that's the way
Well,
they explained it.
And speaking of that, I feel like there was an opportunity there to have Gore die a villain, and have Thor use a wish to get rid of the cancer, and then Jane's fine.
Which is exactly why they didn't do that, because to Brian's point earlier, the reason you bring her back is to do a certain thing, but you can't keep her around forever.
Yeah.
So that's how you end her story.
This felt like more of a send off for Natalie Portman's Jane than anything else.
Can I ring in real quick? The only thing that, if I truly had one small wish that I wanted something different, and I know you said, like, let's not talk about what we wish it was.
I just don't want to go down the
only
rabbit
little
hole
thing-
of it.
The only little thing, that button scene at the end, I wish, I think I told you this, Brian, at the theater, I wish Frigga had been the one to greet her at the gates of Valhalla instead of Heimdall. She too died in battle. I think that there's a reason for her and Jane to have more of a personal connection than her and Heimdall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have loved to see Rene Russo have just like one more second to bring that just like easy majesty
Yeah.
in that character to that.
Where do I want to go from here? The one thing I think that happened at the end that we never really we're skirting around a little bit, but I feel like the big takeaway for the end of the movie is that Thor ends up with a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't see that coming. Like, I think they were laying the breadcrumbs for it, like talking about Thor as a dad and like how he's longing to have children at some point. So the breadcrumbs I think were there, but when we finally got to the end, I still think I wasn't expecting them to go that way, so I was a little surprised by that. But what did you guys think of Thor ending up with love at the end of the movie?
One thing I'll say, and then I'll toss it to Andy. Very cool that that's his actual daughter.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time. I found that out after the fact. That is pretty cool.
Hopefully it turns out that she can actually act.
She did pretty good.
I think
job
she
in-
acted better with Chris Hemsworth than Christian Bale. Hands down.
I guess I have to see it again. I feel like she didn't have enough time for me to really judge that, but I wasn't
Although
observing
all
it.
scenes that she was with Christian Bale, she was dying. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like she was much more full of life with Chris Hemsworth. So
Maybe. Yeah.
does anybody know like what who her character is supposed to be?
No.
Not at all.
Granted, I didn't try to do any background research after seeing the movie, so I don't know if she's supposed to be someone.
Yeah,
but
ditto. It seemed very like they have something very specific in mind for her to do, and I'm like, I don't know who that is.
If this is the last time you see Thor, that'd be a very strange way for it to end.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
maybe she becomes Thor.
Maybe,
she becomes- maybe she
if
becomes-
this is the end of that storytelling for that
Yeah.
character, this would be a strange
Maybe
place to just leap off on all of a sudden.
Yeah, because we really don't get, like, the title card at the end says Thor will return. It doesn't say Chris Hemsworth will return, so we could be someone else, as the mantle of Thor,
right.
for all we know.
So, quickly running a quick search, the only daughter of Thor that exists, as far as I can see in Marvel Comics, is named Torun, not Love, but Torun, and she is the daughter of Thor and Sif.
Okay.
So,
So they
probably
took some
not
liberties with
related.
the movie.
Yeah, I would say probably not related, and maybe their own thing, or maybe there's some that just doesn't pop up that quick on Google, and you gotta
Yeah.
deep dive for a little bit.
I mean, I like the we didn't get the title card of the movie until the end, like when Korg's given the story, and this is the story of Love and Thunder, and Love is the name of the daughter, and Thunder is Thor's nickname. Like, I dug all that. I thought that worked pretty cool.
The Korg story parts worked great for me. Like him
Yeah.
telling the story was fantastic. It just
Josh, are you a little bit jealous that Korg's getting together with Dwayne?
I'm a little frustrated at myself that I'm too dim, that I did not get the Dwayne the Rock joke on my own, and someone had to say it out loud
Yeah.
later for it to chime.
I think I said I missed it too because I was too focused on Dwayne's porn stash that I
Yes.
missed the name of
Yes.
the Rock character.
Well, and I think it was also, and that was sort of it, like they did not go out of their way to make that other being also try to somehow quasi resemble Dwayne Johnson. So I just thought, like, oh, it's funny. It's another rock guy. He's got that porn stash. That's funny. Mustaches are funny. Dwayne. Ah, hilarious. Not something like Korg or a space name. Dwayne. That's what my brain focused on, and I missed the whole thing.
I just love that it's just like, oh yeah, we're just rocks. We just go and meet over lava and make more rocks, and they come to life. Like, what?
I mean, if we get Thor 5, right, we're gonna get some Korg babies, right? That's happening.
Oh, Korg
Think of all the
babies are
pops
gonna
that
be
Josh
the
is gonna
new
buy
Baby
when they
Groot.
release little Korg babies.
Oh, Korg baby's the new Baby Yoda.
I mean, go ahead. Sorry, yeah, it's not important.
Well, no, I was just gonna spin. Was there any other moments that stuck out to you guys? Anything else we didn't really talk about that we feel like we should touch on? Oh,
the joke.
the goats I want
Yeah.
to talk about.
The goats. Yeah.
I love the
Which
goats.
was what we kind of alluded to. I think Andy and I are on the same page of something that was funny at first, got very old very quickly, and then had one or two moments later on that still
See,
was kind of funny.
Yeah, I was like almost instantly annoyed by them because they were like they were very loud and like obnoxious immediately, and I was like, giant goats, that's weird, and they are still yelling. Why the fuck are they still yelling? Like
That was part of the
It's the
point.
internet gag went too long.
yeah, and I chuckled at a few points. I actually laughed out loud when they hit the planet, and then
Yes.
screamed.
Yes.
That was funny, and I'm like, okay, like I could really do with a lot of the rest of this, but that was a pretty good part.
Yeah.
See,
I think they were used just the perfect amount. I liked them a lot.
I agree with I love the goats. What I thought you guys were talking about was the running joke of like Thor having this like relationship with Stormbreaker, and like, oh, I'm not trying to cheat on you with. It's like this is I didn't like it did not hit
See,
for
that
me
I liked.
once. I hated that.
That I liked. I thought that was funny because I think it's I liked the parallels between that relationship, like just with like they're playing it like a breakup of a couple, right? But it's just their hammers. Like I thought that was funny. Like Jane and Thor dated the same person. Like to me that was funny.
Mm.
Um,
I didn't find it unfunny per se. I didn't think it was as important, and not that it got a lot of screen time per se, but I didn't think it was as important as some of the other stuff that would have strengthened the rest of the stories.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's some of the stuff you could trim away to get time back to the movie for something else. Because I will admit, as much as I liked the ongoing joke with Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, that it did go on too long.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
think you
thought
could have
it's
just
what
done
you
it a
were
couple
talking
times and
about,
been fine.
because
I
it
enjoyed
happens
it.
so much.
I enjoyed it to a point until it got to the point where it was almost part of the story. Like Stormbreaker.
Yeah, where Stormbreaker's getting temperamental.
Yeah, and Stormbreaker went with Gore, because Stormbreaker probably could have chosen not to go with Gore. I'm assuming.
I never got the sense, I guess, that Stormbreaker has that much of a will. Like, Mjolnir obviously has to choose the you're worthy to be able to wield
Right.
it.
I sort of thought.
But
that
Stormbreaker,
was
I think anybody
along
can
this-
pick him up.
Oh, okay. I guess that makes sense.
Because, I mean,
No, that's
Thanos
true,
picks it up in Endgame to almost kill Thor with it.
Okay.
Yeah, anybody can pick up Stormbreaker, but wielding it properly and it cooperating as you try to wield it is a different story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that
And-
was what it was doing, was just cooperating with Gore, not really like choosing Gore or anything.
Mike can probably correct me on this, but I also I found out afterward that like the goats were not just a gag; they are
Mhm.
like mythology and comics
Yes,
source, right?
yes. Thor has goats.
So,
It's
like,
a thing. They're not those
yeah.
goats. They're not screaming ridiculous.
Yeah, they don't
goats.
scream.
But yes, they do. They are a thing.
They melded
To be fair-
comic mythology with the internet meme.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Because if you're gonna bring in giant goats,
May as well have them scream.
it really, they really might as well. Come on,
I thought it was hilarious. I loved it.
I liked it.
So, I'm gonna bring up a moment that I thought was actually really cool when Thor bestows his power upon the children to help him fight
Oh, yeah.
Thor. Did anybody
Mhm.
else just like sort of get like a little pumped up for that little battle scene?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But
I
it, like,
really,
to-
really enjoyed that.
And I'm the type that's like, that was awesome, but it comes to my mind like, but could he always do that? Because I feel like that would have come in handy in a few other scenarios. I don't know, the battle against friggin' Thanos, where he could just bestow everybody the additional power of Thor.
Right. I didn't know if that was because he had the Thunderbolt, if that was like an artifact thing.
sure.
For the sake of this movie, yes, let's go with
Yeah,
that explanation.
that gives
'cause
more
otherwise
meaning
it
to
breaks
the
everything
Thunderbolt.
else.
Because
Glad you picked up on
because
that.
he not only does he do that we didn't know that he had the capability of doing, but he also had the capability of almost like enchanting or maybe possibly cursing, depending on how you look at it, Mjolnir to protect Jane or kill her. And
Well,
I
he
didn't
is
Yeah.
think he
King
had
of
that ability.
Asgard, isn't he? Technically speaking, even if he named Valkyrie King of Asgard, he still is Odin's son. So
But
he's still...
He I don't even think he knows that he has that ability because he didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Maybe not that one, but at the end he does it on purpose.
That
obviously.
he does on purpose, but I feel like he's still trying to figure out his powers or his capabilities.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
he
I
doesn't
get-
understand it.
Again, I think that just comes down to who's writing the movie and what do they want him to do. They just retcon it or make him do. You can explain it in the movie to do whatever you want to do.
Right.
So I guess that's something you just can't. You have to just kind of take with a grain of salt. Maybe there's not a good solid explanation for some of that stuff because, like you said,
No.
otherwise it breaks some of the movies before.
Right.
One piece that I do want to bring up that is it's been nagging me since I watched this was, for number one, how very little Valkyrie had to do,
Yeah.
and number two, I know we all fall victim, as we've talked about just in the last hour, of the movie that we thought we were going to get or that we think might make it better
Yeah.
versus what we got, and that has to do with expectations and blah blah blah. Okay, fine, but I have backing for this. At Comic-Con in 2019, following Endgame, when they announced the whole next slate of things and they brought this cast out on stage, they made, I felt, a rather big point of saying that Tessa Thompson's character will be kind of confirming that she's gay, but also that she'll be looking for her queen because she is now king.
Oh, right. Yeah, I do remember that.
And the most that you get out of that whatsoever is the 2-second conversation with her and Face Korg just confirming that she's sad that her girlfriend died fighting Hela.
Yeah.
That is it. That is as much as that plays into her character, into the story, into the arc, nothing. You barely even, aside from that, you barely even get Valkyrie kinging at all. You kind of get a bit of like, okay, she has to glad hand and do like administrative leadership, political stuff almost. You almost don't even get to see her be a leader.
Well, I think they alluded a bit to, I guess the way to put it is like the inherent sexism thing when she's trying to get people to listen, and all of a sudden Thor's there, and Thor says, "Hey, everybody shut up, listen to me," and everybody immediately is like,
which is fine.
Okay. And I think they're trying to point out that
if that's the comment they're making, okay,
struggling to maintain leadership because of that. Because it's still like people know Thor is out there, and she's trying to maintain leadership while people are like, but Thor still is a thing. So she's struggling to, I guess, like get a grasp on the people and get them to truly follow her.
Maybe my counter to that would be that I think the 5-year gap that they show you in Endgame, he appoints her as leader because he recognizes she has already become the leader to these people in his absence. So she has already gained their respect and their reverence.
Well, I think she was doing it, but I don't think she had the respect and reverence. I think she was leading them and keeping them safe and doing things for them that maybe people weren't giving her the credit for or recognizing her for because Thor was there and they assumed she was under orders or something. You know, you get my point? Like, I think it's...
Maybe I have to walk away from that a little bit, but I will say I went into this at least thinking that a significant chunk of her character arc in this specific movie, as presented by the producers in a public announcement of this project, was going to involve, at the very least, a romantic arc for her, whether or not that fit into the capacity of her, serving as the king of these people now or not. That was like, Valkyrie did not need to be in this movie.
Well, I think
she served no function.
Just for the movie making process, I would not be surprised if early on there was a version of the script that had that in there. And just like we talked about, seems like there's 5 different stories going on where they had to cut something, and that ended up on the chopping block.
And it's like, it touched on it. And that's the thing, it doesn't even feel like a director's cut, like you said. Like, it doesn't feel like there's another version of this movie.
No, I think it was cut before they filmed anything.
Longer.
Like, it probably got cut out of the script.
Yeah.
I agree. So there's parts of it that I wonder, like, okay, then, like, almost, why put it there?
Maybe
I
just
don't know.
got pushed down the road to the next project, and it's just like, we're going to have her do it, but it didn't fit in this movie.
I guess, but then again, like, to me, she did... if that wasn't present, and not to say that's the only function she needed to serve, was just to be like a beacon of LGBT examples necessarily, but her character hardly did anything and did not really serve a necessary function in this entire story arc.
I agree.
Do you think they could spin an MCU show about Valkyrie?
I was just about to say, Josh, the storyline you're looking for is in a show.
Yep.
Probably, and that's fine. Like, I would watch that. That's okay. It's just, she literally did not need to be in here. Nothing changes if she's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like a girlfriend listening ear to Jane, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Which their scenes together were great.
She did have that. Yeah. She did have that moment where she gave the wink and the gun to the Zeus handmaid.
Oh yeah.
Which we could also like say, like, was that Aphrodite? You never know. We don't have anything to go on for that.
Which I will say that
cool.
Okay, so that moment in conjunction with Zeus's menagerie swooning over
naked Thor,
Thor's naked bits and whatnot, but she's also like, I see you, girl. I do like that sort of conjunction. But nobody got the shaft worse than Sif. I don't know why Sif was even like, really, what purpose was there for her to be in this whatsoever that you could not have achieved
I really
in
think it's
what-
just to prove that she's still alive, right? She
Yeah.
was the wild card after Ragnarok that everybody else has wiped out, and she's nowhere to be found.
I guess, but it didn't matter whether she was alive or not. It really did.
Not
Like, and
yet.
if you want her for a later thing, you just save her for that later thing.
But
Again,
she
I think
also
it's just
got to insert the you have to be a warrior to go to Valhalla in it.
That could have came from a million
It
other
could have,
places.
but
I think
that's where
I-
they chose to put it here.
Again, Ragnarok was 2017, so there's been a 5-year gap where we really don't know the fate of Sif, where she is. So this is just, hey,
Right,
she's
she
still
wasn't even in
existing. She's
Ragnarok,
out there.
So and from a story perspective, she has not. It's been 9 years, if you don't count Loki,
Yeah,
and really that's not really her character. That's just a
Right.
manifestation for those. It's been 9 years since she's shown up in a movie. It's back to a Thor movie from Dark World to this, and it's been even longer of a time frame. We're just about catching up to actual story time with the 5-year snap gap.
Right.
Like we're almost there in a way.
Yeah.
So like she's been gone for over a decade.
it's funny. It's funny we get
storytelling.
more of Sif and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. than we do in any other movies.
Yes, and that was the point. Like, why the hell is she there?
Well, she gives Thor a direction at the start of the movie too, where it's like, "Oh, Sif needs me." You know,
Yeah.
like it gives him something to choose and a
did
reason
she?
to. Well, it gives him a reason to ignore the 1,500 other calls or whatever they had for help, to single out
And I
that
think-
one.
And I think she was the one that enlightened Thor that it was Gore the God Butcher that had done it,
Mhm.
and what his. Once again, one of the cool things I would have actually liked to have seen Gore present to Jamie Alexander as Sif. But we just get the hearsay.
Yeah.
She says, "Oh, I've been following these incidents. I've been hunting him. Show us that.
Oh, I
Yes,
agree.
please.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Just a
Yeah.
tad."
Yeah, I feel like 3 characters and probably 2 story arcs could have used another 2 or 3 minutes, at least.
But
Speaking of thinking back to the beginning of the movie, the Guardians are in this and barely there, 5 minutes, and then they're out of the movie. I think I expected
That was
more.
surprising.
Like, there's more of them
That
in the
was
trailer than
disappointing
in
to
this
me.
fucking movie.
I feel like that's because they set up the whole Asgardians of the Galaxy thing, and then they
Right.
decided to dump it. Like they
Yeah.
were like, let's just not do that, and we already did it. Let's not do it again. And they just pitched it aside. Like, how do we do that? Well, just put them in the beginning, and it's good.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get what they tried to set up for the story. It's just the beginning of this movie feels very rushed to me, just to get to where they
Yeah.
want to go,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of
Yeah.
irritates me a little bit. Another thing I think I liked about the movie, the sequence in the middle when they were at the black and white planet, I think just aesthetically that looks really fucking cool. I liked how the color was changing between black and white, and when they'd light up the hammers, you'd start seeing some of the
Oh,
light there.
man.
That was really
yeah,
cool.
that was
Good choice.
really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that stuck out to me moment wise.
In the same vein as what you're talking about, I really enjoyed how they showed Jane so deathly and sickly looking, and then immediately
Yeah,
super fit and very healthy
Yeah.
looking, like in the span of like a snap of your
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
The cameos from Matt Damon and Sam Neill and the other Hemsworth. Why can't I think of his name? Whatever other Hemsworth that was.
And Melissa McCarthy.
Bringing it. Oh yes, yeah.
Melissa McCarthy, and her. If you watch, you actually see her husband
Yes.
doing the bowing with them from the
Uh-huh.
distance as well.
He's this like the stage manager.
Yeah.
Did anyone else
Yeah.
get Rita Repulsa vibes when she is on stage like giving her rant? That's the only thing I could think of.
Yes. Now that you say it, yes.
It was unexpected
Stupid
and
punnies.
great to see. Like it just
Yeah.
it worked.
So I'm glad that was a takeaway from Ragnarok that they brought over. I thought that was kind of fun.
And we
Yeah.
get them again later too. That's not the only time we see them. We see them discussing
Yeah,
like
that
how to
very
make
little bit.
how to make a scene out. Should we? Is
Yeah,
it too soon? Should we do this?
that wasn't a no. Let's go.
Yeah.
I have a couple final little questions. I don't know if you guys have anything else before we get to those.
I have one,
Okay.
Depends on what your final questions are.
and
But yeah, shoot.
my one is I love Deadpool fans rejoice. It may not be Headpool, but we got Korg Headpool. So, like, if you don't know Deadpool carries around a zombified head from another universe for a stretch of his comics, and we get Korg being that in this movie, and that has to be where this is drawn from.
Oh, I see.
So we get Korg being Headpool, and I loved it. Like, when he was just a face, it was just like, that's amazing. That was
Yeah.
maybe my favorite part of this movie.
Andy, do you have something else?
I didn't have
Okay.
anything else. No, I was waiting on bated breath for your questions.
Yeah.
Well, one of the obvious ones is out of the 4 Thor movies, where are you going to rank this? Where does it stack up? I'll let you guys think of that one. I'm going to try to catch
Okay.
you off guard with this one. I have a couple like this or that for everybody.
Oh,
Okay. Well, if you're asking like preference questions, and let me actually throw one in. A last point. Music. I think well done again.
I think, is it all
like-
Guns N' Roses?
It's nearly
I
all Guns N'
think
Roses. My only critique, and I guess it kind of parallels with Ragnarok. You get like the opening scene and the big climax, both using "Immigrant Song."
Mm-hmm.
This one kind of did the same thing with "Sweet Child of Mine," and if I'm not mistaken, though, I think it shows up like in the middle too.
mm-hmm.
So I think it was a bit of an overuse of
Yes.
one singular band, where like some of those
Yep.
needle drops for a song would have been maybe a little bit better. Like I don't think you needed Paradise City. I was actually very happy when I heard the rumblings of the ending portion of November Rain kick in
Mm-hmm.
during the climax when the kids start to power up. I'm like, oh okay.
Yeah, that was
Yep,
well
there's
done.
There's the piano and that snare drum starting into that, and then once that, like the third solo of that song hits, with Slash, and you just really get those high notes. It's like, okay, that was well placed.
They did do Welcome to the Jungle too, or am I misremembering that?
I think
Yeah,
you're right.
it was in
on
there.
that
I
as
can't
well.
remember where
I
it
think that
was.
his first.
There was
that was-
four different Guns N' Roses
that was
songs.
Guardians of the Galaxy when he finally decided to join the battle.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Welcome to the Jungle.
Okay.
Yep.
But I felt like they leaned too far into the Guns N' Roses like repertoire. I would have preferred if they would have spread it out a little bit into like some more classic rock. But
Yeah, agreed. I just coincidence, just a human interest story. I have never heard the song "Rainbow in the Dark" that plays in the credits. I never heard that song in my life until I know until there's like certain like there's like an 80 like I don't really have like I have an Iron Maiden donut hole like that
wait,
style of
until
like
when?
80s metal
Until
I just
this
kinda, like, fall
movie?
through. So I did not hear that song until a week before this movie. I heard someone do it at karaoke a week before this
You
movie.
just never listened to Dio? Like it's
No.
wow.
Like I said, it's
Wow.
like that style of like kind of like quote like 80s metal in that way that like yeah, it just was never a thing for me. So I never heard it, and then it shows up twice in less than 2 weeks.
Wow. Yeah.
That's it. That's my last one.
I'm surprised you never heard it, but I mean it happens. Everybody's got gaps, you know.
Actually, when we were talking about the beginning of the movie and music and stuff playing, there was another moment that suddenly flashed to me was the Van Damme split. I thought that was hilarious.
I loved it, but that was one of the most shining examples in retrospect to me of
The
Thor is in
tonal
on
shift.
the joke.
Yeah,
Yeah, your character is in on the joke
Yeah.
of what's happening. I loved it, and that was one of my biggest laugh moments.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of a conflicting.
I
issue
feel like
there.
it also lasted
I
too
didn't
long.
laugh at the split itself as much as I laughed at the Guardians' reactions to it.
Fair.
All right, so we're gonna do some rapid fire this or that. So I'm gonna present the question whether you prefer this or that. You guys tell me which one you want, or which one you prefer. Asgard or New Asgard?
Are we
Asgard.
just shouting?
Yeah.
Okay. Asgard.
It was like the first person to answer it, are they right?
Yeah, like
Yeah, there's no right or wrong. Just what do you prefer?
Asgard.
Yeah, Asgard.
Yeah, I'm on Asgard too. Mighty Thor or Valkyrie?
Valkyrie.
Mighty Thor.
It depends on what movie I'm watching. Based on this movie, I have to go Mighty Thor because again, Valkyrie did not get much.
Yeah, sadly, I think after this, I think Mighty Thor sticks out to me a little bit more. So that's kind of where I'm leaning right now.
They did. I feel like they did give Valkyrie some really good looking, cool moments with like the Pegasus and
Yeah.
her like fighting stick, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
A bit more than you got before, but yeah, I'd have to go with Mighty Thor.
I like the segment.
Thor's Guardians outfit or Thor's armor outfit?
Which armor outfit? He has like 3 different ones on this.
Well, the
movie,
one he
doesn't
gets in this movie, the black, the blue and gold,
he? Guardians. I'll go.
the sleeveless.
I'll go
the-
80.
the-
I
the
will
I
go
guess-
80s hairband outfit over just about anything.
I'll let Andy answer first.
Thor.
Andy, you got a preference?
Thor.
Well, the Guardians outfit or the armor outfit?
The traditional
Okay.
Thor. Sorry.
I'm gonna side with Mike and go with the Guardians outfit only because it doesn't. I don't think we've ever been shown that his Asgardian getup necessarily does anything special or different.
Yeah.
So if we're just kind of going by cool style, then in that case, yeah, might as well go Guardians.
Yeah, it's a tough call for me. I think the blue and gold look really fucking cool in this movie, but that Guardians outfit, I'm like, that's just fun. Like, I wanted to see
Yeah.
more of him doing cool shit in that outfit.
Can I make a side note?
What's up?
Thor 5 or next appearance, can we please get the Ultimates outfit he has? Can we please see that version? The black and blue.
No cape.
Yeah,
No cape.
no cape, black and blue. Just it's almost like a black wife beater look to it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Gore or Hela?
Ooh, that is such a tough.
Oh, nice. I feel like neither of them got to reach their full potential
I agree.
for storytelling purposes.
I have to go Hela.
feel like-
man.
I feel like Hela did more cool things on screen than Gore did, so I'm gonna go Hela.
Yes. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Yeah, Team Hela.
Was everybody Hela? Was you saying Hela too, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hellas.
Yeah, I might lean that way too. Like I said, I think Gore was really fucking cool in this movie. I think Christian Bale did really good. We just didn't get enough of him, so I'm gonna go Hela too. Darcy or Korg?
Korg.
Yeah, I feel like that's an easy one.
Korg.
I liked me some Darcy. I actually was thinking about I really, really liked her turn in WandaVision.
Yes.
And had
Yeah.
she been more a part of this, like maybe, but no, it's always
I'm surprised that
Korg
wasn't
way.
just a conversation they had, right? Like she was possessed in WandaVision. Like why would they not just talk about that? As like, hey, remember this thing?
I want to see a Darcy and Korg conversation happen. I want to see her
Oh,
talk
yeah,
to
that too.
Korg and
Yeah.
figure out how to say things in his language, and he's confused by what her purpose is.
Yeah. Last one I got, the big one. Mjolnir or Stormbreaker?
Mjolnir, especially because of I don't know, I really enjoyed like the segmented fighting style that the Mighty Thor uses with it.
Like when it
That
breaks
was cool.
apart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
That
things
was cool.
things that she was able to do like that, I think even sort of like stunned old Thor.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I will give them a positive programming note. The fact that just because Jane has it and it went back together, like the broken seams were all still there. It didn't completely heal and wasn't perfect again,
Yeah.
which then allowed them to utilize it in the way that they did, which was a good choice. But that creatively, I think it was a good idea to not have it just be magically healed.
Yeah.
So you could almost say that Mjolnir's existence almost paralleled Jane's at that point, which is
I
maybe
was
why
Yes.
they sought
Thinking
each other.
that, yeah.
Yeah, and it worked really well.
So does that make?
I didn't
Yeah,
answer.
I was gonna say, what's your answer then?
In this movie, I will go Mjolnir. I think overall, Stormbreaker just seems more badass.
I go Stormbreaker. Stormbreaker 1, you got the Rainbow Bridge. You know, you can do.
That's true. You can't do the Bifrost
yeah.
with Mjolnir.
Yeah, you can do that. But Stormbreaker is also half Groot, so it wins.
Yeah.
I like that when he stuck it in the ground at the beginning and he pulled it out, it actually had roots, like
Yeah.
it was trying to make a tree.
Which means it technically
Yes.
is a Groot.
Yeah.
So it's still alive. Like it can. I don't know. Yeah. That's why.
Yeah, I feel like I'm leaning Stormbreaker too right now. I don't know. There's something about just holding that big axe that I feel like just makes you feel badass. All right, last question. Out of the four, well, before we get to the rating, out of the 4 Thor movies, where does this stack up on your list? You don't have to give me all 4, but like, is it middle, top, bottom, wherever you want to put it?
Number 2.
Do you already know the rest of the placings for everything? All your other movies?
The other, all 4.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
be surprised
if all 4, yeah.
Ragnarok's
nearly the
first. This
same.
is second, and Thor 1 is 3, and Dark World 4.
Okay. Josh, are you nodding agreement?
Probably agreement. I had a lot of I've had a lot of problems with this one. So right now I'm gonna just put it at a tie for spot 2 and 3 with the first Thor, and then maybe in second, third viewings, let it digest over a couple of years, figure out where that split goes.
Okay. Andy, where you at?
I'm gonna go Ragnarok, Love and Thunder, Dark World, Thor.
Oh, I think all of our lists are slightly different. I'm going. Well, I think we agree that Ragnarok is first.
Yep.
I think I'm putting
Yeah.
the first Thor next, and then Love and Thunder, Dark World is my 4. All right, so last question out of 10, where do you rate Thor: Love and Thunder?
I'll go first. Just real, so I think I feel like we only got about half of what everything was supposed to be. So I'm giving this a 6.
Okay. Still higher, I think, than I thought you were going to go with that lead in, but Andy, Mike, either you queued up, you ready?
I feel like with this movie, the old moniker "less is more." You know, you could have more meaty things if you do try to do less things.
Yeah.
I think this movie falls into that category. If I feel like if they would have tried to do less and given more meat to the less, it would have been a better movie.
Yeah.
I still enjoyed it. I still think Thor is really awesome. I'm going to give it a 7 with an asterisk that I don't remember what I rated the other movies.
I mean, we probably would have reviewed Ragnarok. I don't know if we did Dark World.
I feel like
Dark
that
World
one of
was
the
done.
First, yeah, I feel like that was one of the first podcasts I was actually on.
Okay. maybe we
That
did
was
do it.
that
So
was a
that's-
very early one of your shows. That was in the first 10, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
geez. All right, so that's way
Dark
gone.
World might have been Nerdologist,
Or the Geekologist one.
Geekologist,
Yeah.
if you did it, because we didn't start this till the spring of 2015.
Right. You have to... Not even... Because this stuff, if it's that far back, was still not... Definitely not still posted. I have to go through, like, my archives to see what
And
we
you,
did.
you
with
may not
that
have
one.
been rating things at that time.
Yeah. Did we
Or
like it?
maybe-
Yes or no?
Or maybe we just talked about it when we tried to like rate like form a list of all the Marvel.
It might have been like, yeah,
sat.
something like that, or top 10s of the year or something like that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, yeah, I might have made some lists or rated it somehow, somewhere, but yeah, back in the day, that was a while ago. Mike, what do you got out of 10?
I'm going to go with a 7.5. And what I would say about that, and I guess like the other ratings that I wanted to talk about earlier, but we weren't because of spoilers and all that. I feel like personally, a lot of the ratings that have this very close to Dark World are not necessarily rating this movie wrong. They're just overrating Dark World. I feel like,
I
the
agree.
ratings were pretty spot on for this, where I feel like, but Dark World just seems, what the hell are those so high for?
Well, I'm also thinking, too, like, there probably wasn't rated... Like, I don't know how much those ratings fluctuate from when the movie was out. Like, that might have been what it was
Right.
rated then, and then... Or it was rated lower and has bounced back. I don't really know. Without looking at the, back when the movie was released, what the ratings were.
Right. It's just one of those things, like, currently, if that's where they're at, I feel like Dark World's overrated, and this is actually kind of spot on.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
7.5 for me. It was fun. I had a good time. Didn't leave a sour taste in my mouth. It had its plot holes and stuff, but, it's still a superhero movie, so I'm... this isn't a Scorsese film where I'm gonna really hold that against it or something.
Yeah. I didn't think I was coming in this harsh, but I'm coming in lower than you guys. I'm giving it a 5.5 out of 10.
Oh wow. Okay.
I think it's very mediocre, middle of the road for me. And maybe that's just like we talked about with the hype. I think I expected a lot more from this movie and was very excited going in and just came out feeling underwhelmed. And I saw it twice opening weekend, and even the second time, it didn't really bounce back for me. I came out it feeling about the same. So repeat viewings with some time separating in between viewings might change my rating, but for right now, I think I'm very mediocre and middle of the road for this one for me. But all right, so that's it for us. I don't really know what we're doing next. We got some stuff in the air. We'll talk about. There's I think a lot on the docket. I don't think it's this weekend, but I think next weekend is San Diego Comic-Con. So I don't know what we're gonna get from there to talk about. But we got Stranger Things on the docket. I don't know if there's any other big movies coming out. I can't think of anything else that's releasing soon So August might be a little thin, so maybe we'll get to some of our backlog topics in August and see what we get through. But anyway,
I'll plug something for something else. The new season of Harley Quinn, the animated show, kicks off on HBO on July 28th. Holy shit, it is good.
I still have to watch that. I have not.
If you're
watched
not
that.
watching this, like, I know people say that all the time, but if you like this stuff at all, it is so freaking good.
And speaking of plugs, 2 days ago, the new season of What We Do in the Shadows started, directed by Taika Waititi. So,
does he do the seasons of the show?
usually he's on as a writer. He may not be the director of every episode.
Okay.
But
Like I know he did the movie. I didn't know how involved he was with the show.
I'd have to look and see. Like, I don't know exactly how many episodes he's directed, but him and the other guy. What's the other guy's name?
Is it Jermaine?
Yes.
Is he part of that? Okay.
Flight of the Conchords, dude.
Yeah.
One of them. Yeah.
He is. They are both primarily involved with writing and directing and all that, but it's like a lot of other shows.
Yeah.
So there's several, but yeah. That
Andy, you got
2 days
anything you
ago.
want to plug that you're watching or should be watching?
Well, shit. I didn't know I was getting thrown on the spot.
I mean, everybody else threw something in there. So what do you got? Put you on the spot.
I got nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll save it for next time.
Sure.
I'll take his spot because this is something Brian will never see. Jordan Peele's new movie Nope comes out Friday, July 22nd. I freaking can't wait for that.
I am actually very curious about that, so I will let you see it and tell me if I can handle it or not.
We'll let you know.
Okay.
We'll let you know. Maybe that's something Josh
Okay.
and I can review for August if it's that
See,
late.
did you see Get Out?
No.
You would be fine with Get Out. It's horror in the scary-ish, psychological-ish sense.
Okay.
Way more with like maybe one sequence scene towards the end, granted, but it's not like Us was very good, but had much more physical violence
Yeah.
built into it. But I don't know what Nope is going to be like.
Get Out is more
necessarily.
suspense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Nope is striking me so far as more that side than violence.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I mean, Nope seems to be
leaning.
leaning sci-fi-ish, so that's piqued my interest. So
Technically, Us was sci-fi too.
okay.
Very much sci-fi. Just
goes that way.
So it was Get Out, really. I mean, technically speaking.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see. Yeah. Nope's kind of on my radar, but I don't know if that's going to be a theater watch or try to watch it at home somewhere down the line. But either way, I'll let you guys tell me about that later.
We'll pre-screen
and
it.
how I. Yeah. You could be the parents for me for this one. All right, so that's it for us. If you've enjoyed the show, please support us, leave a 5-star rating and review, give us a share on social media. You can follow or subscribe to the show to keep up with us. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Google, Anchor, Stitcher, Amazon, hopefully anywhere you're finding podcasts, you can find us. Check us out on Facebook, search Bry Guy into Super Friends, or go to facebook.com/Bry Guy Super Friends. You can leave us questions, comments, topic suggestions, any of that stuff there. Try to email me, bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com. It's legit. It works. I don't ever check it. I'll get it in another year. Hit us up on Twitter @BGSuperFriends. That I will see. That I will respond to. You can follow me on Twitch. It's Jedi Bry Guy. Jedi with an I, Bry with a Y. Whenever we do some of the live recording shows, we'll do that there. If you ever want to see me randomly stream some games, I also do that there too. And that's it. On behalf of Andy, Josh, Mike, and myself, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Ninny nanny.